In the early 80s, a boy named Ben lived in Lagos. He lived there with his parents. His father was a construction worker. His salary as a construction work supervisor was very small. Usually, he was responsible for paying the house rent, electric bill, school fees, among a number of other expenses. Those were times when house rents were paid monthly. At that time, landlords had conscience and would gladly accept a tenant's payment made on a monthly basis. In those days, their mouths were not as open as a spoilt water tap, but that was in the 80s. Life then was cheap, and you can buy a new car for under 10,000 naira. Those were very interesting times. At that time, you could eat properly in a mama put joint and pay as low as 500 naira. The 500 naira we are talking about meant that you would be given a plate of rice, fried plantain, beans or ewa, assorted meat parts called orishirishi, and a bottle of minerals to wash it down. Then the minerals were either Fanta, Coke, or 7 Up. Then a housewife would go to the market with just 2,000 naira and buy all the ingredients that could cook a pot of soup that will serve the entire family for about 3 days of balanced eating. The balanced eating I am referring to here means eating in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Looking back now, one would say that life was just too beautiful then. That was the Lagos in which Ben, Chike, and others like them grew up. It was therefore possible for Ben's parents and others like them to have 8 mouths to feed and yet still survived. Ben's mother was just a teacher. Her salary, though small, still assisted the family a great deal. It was such that when the husband and wife put their resources together, they were able to pay some very pressing bills that would ordinarily cause the family some embarrassment. By so doing, they were able to give some reasonable level of education to their children. As it were then, most parents on modest income, like Ben's parents, were just contented with giving education up to the secondary school level to their children. Once the child is able to do the secondary school certificate exams, they give up. Anything beyond that point is a luxury which most parents could not afford. What more, it was very difficult to get a university education for most families back then. At the time we were talking about, there were no private universities nor state-run universities. The only ones available were the federal government-run universities. There were very few of them available. In any case, it was easier for the proverbial camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for an individual from a modest family background to get an admission into the university. To show how difficult it was then, those who managed to secure an admission usually organized a send-off party for that feat. It was as bad as that. Hence, for most children from a modest family background, like those of Ben and Chike, a secondary education would have been fair enough. For Ben, life was a mix of the easy and difficult. His parents had 6 children. They were able to offer them food, education up to secondary level, and a roof over their head. Any other thing over and above that was regarded as luxury. Chike, on the other hand, lived with his mom, having lost his dad a few years back. His mom was a petty trader and feeds herself and the family from the modest income she makes from the trade. As fate would have it, Chike was a born hustler and always looking for a way of earning legitimate money in spite of his young age. He had followed the advice which the father gave him way before his demise. Anytime Chike comes asking for money, the father had always admonished him with these words: "My boy, you got to learn how to hustle. Any man who does not know how to hustle is certainly not fit to live this life. You have to learn how to add value to things and make a living." Chike and Ben have always toyed with that phrase, but it has stuck somehow. As a result, Chike had always hustled and has learned how to make money at any given opportunity, When therefore he got the information that one could make a living being a newspaper salesperson, he quickly grabbed the opportunity as if his life depended on it. He had grabbed it believing that there is no way of being held prisoner. He had read the story of that general who went to war against an enemy that had a superior strength over his own soldiers. The general was said to have sailed his men and materials into enemy territory and ordered the boats they came with be destroyed. In addressing the men, he made them to understand that they were not leaving the island alive. It is either they win or all of them will perish. Eventually, they won. Chike has always remembered that general whenever he was alone and had done his hustles along that same line. Using that mindset, he had always won in his hustles. So while most of his mates were struggling and relying on the meager resources of their parents, Chike had always hustled independent of parents. Hence, when he lost his father, he was able to cope and take care of his mother and other siblings. Ben got tired of living the life of hand to mouth and decided to hustle like his friend Chike. His parents have always advised him against coveting the possession of others. Like they will always say, you don't know what the person they do, no follow them join bad gang go. He knew that the Chike he had known from childhood would not do anything illegal to make money. He had just acted on certain information which he, Ben, is not privy to. So he decided to find out from Chike what he was doing and how he can key into it. He has heard stories of people making money through illegitimate means. He was going to make sure he does not lose his guard in the process. He was going to guard his every movement the way a boxer guards his face from those fatal punches thrown by a very aggressive opponent. Chike, on the other hand, was not good at hiding what will be beneficial to others. When it comes to issues like that, he was as loose as a drunken soldier with a fully loaded instrument of battle. He was a great believer in the school of thought that says that there is no scarcity in the world, that the world is full of abundance, and that the more you share, the more you get. When therefore Ben approached him like a man trying to woo a woman, he did not hesitate to give him his secrets. After some few months of tutelage, Ben grabbed the whole formula and ran even faster than a Usain Bolt will do in a 100-meter dash. Ben went into the newspaper business without an option B. He did not go there to try. He went there to win. There was no option of surrender. Eventually he won. And this video will tell us how he did it. One thing about Ben, even as a young star, still living with his parents, is that he doesn't do things with half measures. Like that inquisitive child who must see what is at the bottom of the pit, he usually ensures that no stone is left unturned when he undertakes a project. Hence, when he runs any errand for the parents, he leaves them with no doubt that the errand will be well handled. So when he went for the newspaper business, his aim was not just to sell newspapers. His real aim was to take over the newspaper business. From the very first day he came to the office of the distributor, he quickly began to observe the challenges of the business and how he can do things better. He was very diligent in his approach to the business. Before long, he had outperformed most of the other guys, including those he met on ground. He quickly got himself acquainted with how the wholesale end of the operation operates. When an opportunity came for another person to take over that business from the substantive distributor who was quitting the business, he quickly applied and took over the distributorship. With the precision of a computer, he brought efficiency to the whole business of newspaper distribution in the area. As an intermediary, the people at both ends of the spectrum were very happy with what he was doing. A few years later, he became comfortable with the business and now knows the details like the back of his palms. He eventually applied for distributorship of some newspapers. Because of the tenacity and grit he had shown over time, they quickly granted him that permission. As a result of his new status, Ben now has some boys who come to pick up papers from him on a daily basis. Ben's business in newspaper distributorship expanded quickly, and soon he was given the franchise for newspaper distributorship in a certain part of town. He handled the job excellently well and again outperformed others that were already in the business. He was soon to receive laurels and accolades from a number of the newspaper houses for his excellence in performance. Some of the older hands did not like the way he got the license for the distributorship, so they petitioned the authorities asking for a reversal and requested that they be given the preference of first refusal. But the authorities have since known how efficiently Ben had handled his affairs. They therefore wasted no time in dismissing their petition. When their petitions failed, they began to use thuggery and intimidation to stop the process. But that one, too, failed. It was observed that they hired some thugs and area boys to intimidate his staff and drivers. It was this same staff, prompting, who went to these thugs and got the matter resolved, even without Ben's knowledge. It goes to show that when you are good and doing the right thing, the people will do your fighting for you. Eventually, Ben carried the day without lifting a finger. A few years down the line, he began to negotiate the acquisition of the franchise for a whole region and subsequently for the whole country. While this was going on, he began to study the operation of a few newspaper houses in the country. In the course of time, he observed a lot of inefficiencies in the way a lot of them were run. He looked at the strengths and weaknesses of a number of them and discovered a few patterns which he does not like. These patterns have kept the industry stunted over the years, and he vowed to put things right. The challenges he observed that were peculiar to these newspaper houses were high cost of living, advent of social media, bad roads, ethnic and religious sentiments, cost of transportation, high cost of production materials. When eventually one newspaper house was put out for sale, he quickly grabbed it. He has since made a success of that organization just after a few years of its acquisition. Having established himself in the newspaper industry, he turned his attention to the television business. He was a very prudent and shrewd businessman and used the same pattern in acquiring and building up his television station. In the airline business, he found the following weaknesses: high cost of operation, stiff competition, high cost of aviation fuel coupled with its availability, keeping up with changing technology, retention of scarce talents, etc. When eventually he went into the industry, he hit the ground running and made a success out of his venture. He replicated this system in all the ventures he went into and was very successful in them. When eventually he went into retirement, he had a number of well-run businesses under one umbrella. He now goes about playing philanthropic roles from place to place. Ben's story is another story of grit, determination, perseverance, and holding tenaciously onto your dreams no matter the odds. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.